Hello, friends. This is Chris Lehenbauer with PhaseDoc, welcoming you to our fourth PhaseDoc Live. We're excited to have you here. If you are new to PhaseDoc, we're a manufacturing startup in Raleigh, North Carolina. We focus on single board computers like Raspberry Pi, microcontrollers like Arduino, but we do much more on the mechanical side and not so much on the electronics. Because our main product is a prototyping platform, we get introduced to a lot of fascinating projects built by some very smart, interesting people who are our customers. And we realized that sharing some of those projects would make great live stream, and here we are. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest speaker today, Walker Archer. We met Walker in 2019 at the Detroit Maker Faire, which was held at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. If you have any interest at all in automotive and transportation history or technology, the Henry Ford Museum is a must-see when they open back up again, and the Maker Faire, when they come back online, is just a great time to be there in the summer. Walker is an associate architect for the Ford Motor Company. He is an avid software programmer and a recent electronics hobbyist, but he's been doing that for a number of years. In 2014, he organized the ThunderOps makers as an informal kind of learn by doing group that has displayed projects for years at the Detroit area maker fairs. Our other guests today are Tara and Lefty, but I'll let Walker introduce them. So welcome, Walker. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Good to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you.
Uh,
So tell us a
Tara,
little bit
oh, go
more
ahead.
about yourself and Thunder Ops and kind of how you got to building Tara.
Yeah, I work at Ford Motor Company, as you mentioned. I think system engineer is my official title.
Ah,
And it's been a great place to be, a really good free place to um, work and do a lot of technology. So um, Thunder Ops was a project uh, started. It was a group of makers, which was pretty informal. It was a pretty informal group. Basically, started out as a group of friends that I had, and we had a few people kind of filter through that weren't in that core group, but it was mostly a group of friends that just wanted to work on fun things, and they weren't all technical. We had a really good woodworker, a financial analyst, and just a few people. But making comes in so many different types of ways. So Tara and Lefty are fun projects that I did on wheelchair projects. Tara is, compared to the people you've had on here before, she's very simple. I'd say she's probably one of the dumbest projects that you've had on your show. I probably should have named her Dumbbot. She's that dumb. She hangs out, and her fashion sense is terrible. I don't know why the black all the time. I don't know who cuts her hair. It's ridiculous.
but that was actually a spectacular introduction
She's
there.
right behind me, isn't she?
Uh-huh, she's there. So be careful what you say. We may have made her mad because she's kind of stomping off.
I'll have to reset her later, I think,
Well,
or we'll have trouble with the demos.
that actually it that kind of I mean, we'll talk about the technology for sure, but that's kind of the other aspect of this, right? Is how people interact with the technology, because you show her off at the Maker Faire where there are hundreds and thousands of people, right? How do people respond to her?
It's amazing. It really is shocking at how little detail you can put into the actual form of the bot and have people respond to it. The first robot that I built was for a friend, and I'll bring this up. We called it SpiderBot. So, terrorizing children is just another hobby of mine. But I mean, you can see this is, there's nothing to it. It's basically a remote control car, a big remote control car with this Halloween spider stuck on the top of it. There's nothing else to it. But, you know, as easy as it is to see, it's just a piece of plastic. People respond to it in a kind of a visceral way. But even that, you can add personality to it.
That is the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
That little kid hugging that spider. I did not see that coming.
Yes. He hung around for the longest time. I mean, he probably was there 30 minutes or so. And for all the things that you can see at Maker Faire, all the entertaining things.
Exactly.
And he would keep coming back. He was scared at first, but eventually he and his father got up there, and his father coaxed him to hug the spider.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was fun.
We also saw Tara there in the background in that first video, right? So a lot of
Yes.
people will kind of interact with her, obviously. You got kind of like little routines you do with Tara, don't you?
Yes. She went through 3 different phases, and she's on her 4th revision now. In the first revision, you know, we tried to do remote control. And this was her first revision. So she was using Wi-Fi at that point. And your astute people out in the audience are probably already smacking their foreheads, as I did later on. It was really cool. I liked the interface for this. I like being able to use a tablet. But the problem was when we got her to Maker Faire and people started coming through with their phones, the bandwidth of the radio space was not enough. And she became more and more hard to control.
Wow.
So second year, we abandoned that whole thing.
I do like that interface, so that was pretty nice, but I'm sure
Yeah, I
you're
wish I
starting
could
to
go
lose
back
that.
to it. The beauty of that is that it's all being served. That's a web page, and it's all being served from the bot itself.
Oh,
So full control surface. It was just a matter of doing web editing to make whatever features on there you wanted. So what ended up happening, I'm looking for so this was the first case, you know, just a case from Lowe's actually, and I started stuffing it. I had a couple of buck converters, and you can see the Wi-Fi fob on the side. And this is what it looked like inside. Not too bad.
no, it's actually pretty nice.
There's a BeagleBone Black and an Arduino for some side features. And then these buck converters were 9-volt and 5-volt power supplies for some of the peripherals. So basically, there are 2 ways to control a wheelchair. There's probably more than 2 ways, but the 2 ways that I use, one is to use the existing controller that's part of the, part of the chair when you get it. And so that's what I did initially. And in phase 2, it was hacking that controller.
Yeah, tell us what we're looking at there. So that's the wheelchair, right?
This is the wheelchair controller. Wheelchairs, they have a joystick for driving them around. And this is the the joystick cracked open and the circuit board exposed. There's some charged circuitry on here, but mainly controls. These here are soft buttons that you would hit that, and the contacts would be made, and it would do things like power on or power off, hit a horn, turn the speed up and down. So I was using those, some transistors to flip those. And then the joystick itself, you can kind of see the back of it here. It had a nice ribbon cable. So to hack this, I would just tapped into this ribbon cable and used voltage signals to simulate what the joystick would have done. Wheelchairs, they come in a lot of different kinds, a lot of different ones, and then this is an old one, and the old ones are easier to hack, the controllers. The new ones use CAN bus or a variant of CAN bus. The Shark controllers, for instance, use a CAN bus that has special timing on it, so they make it a little bit more difficult to actually do anything robotic with. You can kind of see this cable here was like a secondary cable that would just be running down to that case.
Is that kind of proprietary CAN bus? Did they document that enough that you could hack it?
Not really. They don't. This equipment is medical equipment, so they're not real forthcoming with information that they would consider something that a competitor could use.
Right. Because I mean, the reason I asked that is the wheelchair itself is such a beautiful kind of maker platform, right? Because you were saying basically what you can carry like 350 pounds for 10 miles or something, right?
Yeah, for some of the best wheelchairs can go 10 miles on a charge, and they're built to carry people who are sometimes quite large. Right. So 350 pounds is a pretty common weight limit. I know the wheelchair on the Shark, I actually tested myself around our neighborhood to my wife's chagrin. I would go at night. When it's dark out, so I could sneak around the neighborhood, and it went 6 miles on a charge.
Well, I know you're going to show us the Shark here shortly because that. But my takeaway from that was that if you can find and hack a wheelchair base, I can just see all kinds of different possible applications for that, right?
And the advantage to hacking the existing controller is that it has a lot of safety features built in. It limits the amount of voltage you're going to get through the wheels, and that's a plus and a minus. There's usually wheel brakes, and that's so that they lock automatically when you remove the power, and that's so that if somebody is going up a long hill and the battery gives out, they will stop and not roll all the way back down.
Right. And so you can keep that if you keep its controller intact, you can keep all those features if you can kind of get at them, right?
Yes, that was my thought starting out, that it was safer and it was a hacker project. It was like this is true make, going in and trying to reuse things and learn the electronics that have already been built. And in the next revision, in the last revision, I have gotten rid of that. And the reason is the signal from the controller, the radio controller, the RC, had to go into a receiver, and then into the computer, the PWM signal from the receiver had to be interpreted. There were like a few steps that had to go through. So there was always a bit of a lag in the control process.
So do you have a picture of how that evolved?
Yes. This was Tara at the Shell Eco Marathon at Detroit Cobo Hall. don't exactly remember the year, but it's an amazing event.
She has drawn quite the crowd.
Yeah, she draws a good crowd. Um, she had a voice at that point, but it wasn't very good. Speakers were undersized, and I didn't have a big enough amp for it. But so everybody had to crowd in to hear what she was saying. But
Look at the faces of the people, though, the kids in particular. Everybody is smiling.
yeah, and here's another one from the same group. You can kind of see how the controller is on the back there as well.
Yeah,
Typically, when I take these robots out, I try to have, my goal is to have 3 at a particular event. And then I'll recruit drivers to take them around to different spots in the event. So we're running all different places around wherever it is. And this is one of the drivers. He happened to be an electrical engineer at Ford as well.
How cool is that?
Or in the middle. That was the paddock. I think they called it the paddock, which is where they got all the eco marathon vehicles.
Oh yeah.
This was her control box at that point, which I don't have a wide shot of this. I just have these two, but you can kind of see how as things change, you change your idea about using Wi-Fi, you change, the whole project evolves over time. It just gets more and more crowded.
Yeah.
That's what's happening here. I don't even know what these 2 wires were for, but they were for something I was working on. So eventually I decided it probably was not a good idea to do Wi-Fi. And I added better sound and an amplifier. Again, it's a fairly simple project, but we ended up with this. I'm going to share another camera. This is what happened. This is what happens when you run a project for too long.
That's a fair amount of spaghetti. I will give it that.
Yes.
Yep.
So I had a plastic case on this so that people could see inside, and I'd often get people who wanted to see the electronics. Sure. And I would bring them over and show them this, and their faces would go blank, and I would not get any more questions. So it was obvious that I had to do something with this, and when you came up and showed me your product, that was it, right?
I remember that moment, and it's still gratifying because that's why we started the company, is to solve problems. And so when it actually happens, it's a good day.
So I'll bring Tara over.
Oh, and we've still got the down camera.
Yeah, I'm gonna park her.
Oh, good. Yep.
And that's what it looks like now. Oh, sorry for this wire, I ran some power to Tara, but my goal is to get all of these cables managed a little bit better.
Yeah, that's...
So instead of using the controller, we've completely gotten rid of the controller now, and this is a basic micro 2x15. It's a 15 amp motor controller.
Right.
And RC goes direct to that. And I can tell you, even just moving her over today, it's like, the control is like so much more responsive, a lot safer, I think, than having the lag times, especially in an instance like this, where she's around people all the time. You really need to have a good control over the motion of the robot. This is a BeagleBone green here. One of the really nice things about the BeagleBone is it is truly open source. You can download the Gerbers, you can send them to somebody to print, populate it yourself, or have them populate it. It is open source. Companies can download those Gerbers if they have something that they want to integrate. They can change the design and produce it. And the BeagleBone Green is produced by Seed Studio, and that's a perfect example of that open consideration.
Yeah, they do a good job. I've one of our friends and collaborators who may be on today, Andre Rosso, has had some PCBs done by those folks, and they do a really nice job. You know, Walker, I did not know, honestly, until the pre-show. I mean, I've known about BeagleBone since the beginning. We have one here. I've never honestly used it because I do almost everything I do on Arduino. But what was cool about it was you explained to me that the BeagleBone is essentially, you can kind of think of it as a cross between a Raspberry Pi and an Arduino, right? Because it's kind of got both a general purpose computer on it as well as microcontroller stuff. Talk to us about that.
Yes, it has. I want to say also, I like Arduino. I like the Raspberry Pi. I do like the Raspberry Pi. I like having options and different tools. If I have a tool set, I have more than one screwdriver. I've got a Phillips head and a flathead, and they're good for different things. I really like the BeagleBone for this project because this project takes a lot of vibration. You know, as it's rolling around, heat you can't control, and this thing runs super cool. So it just fits here. But you're right, it has a main processor which drives the Linux side of it, and it also comes with two microcontrollers which are they call them PRUs, programmable. Now I'm blanking on the PRU acronym. But they're basically real-time units. That's the RU. And they're sort of like an Arduino. They're not as easy to program as an Arduino. There's definitely a learning curve to programming them. But they are deterministic, so you can put things on them that require real-time processing. They're really on there mostly to do things like peripherals that need that type of thing, driving serial ports or you know, whatever. In this case, I haven't got it working yet, but I'm going to use it to read the PWM from the remote control unit. It's perfect. They're perfect for that.
Hey, and show us that remote control unit because you've done some pretty cool stuff with that too, right? Basically, you reflashed that guy, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah. It's OpenTX. So this is a Turnigy 9X, which is not a very expensive radio in terms of like how expensive these things can be. It's 8 channels. The more channels for robots, the more channels, the better if you want to control a lot of things. And eventually I want to do a lot of motion with the arms and head. But basically, this was about $50. It might be cheaper now because it's getting to be quite an older radio now. But you can take a radio like this and flash it with a product like OpenTX, Open Transmitter, and make it have some of the features. I won't say it's a more expensive radio, but it has some of the features more expensive radios have on it just by downloading free open source firmware and flashing it. So there are things like, it's kind of weird because there's like 8 channels and 13 different switches on this thing. Why would you have 13 switches when you can only send them over? And the reason is because inside the firmware, you can do things like change the the curve of like acceleration for things. So for instance, I've got one switch here, which changes the curve for the forward, left, right movement. And this will, if I change this, it will flip into different speeds. So it just replaces, so this is like just a way to program the radio to do more with the robot rather than putting all of that control inside, say,
That's extremely helpful, and I can see using that particular thing, for instance, on a CNC machine. You know, you can, you've got a joystick essentially, and sometimes you want to move a little, sometimes you want to move a lot for every bump of the joystick. And so I can see dialing in a safety like that. If you have a younger operator, for instance, you want to throttle back the response,
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah.
So that is really cool technology in itself right there.
Yeah, for me, sometimes you get in a crowd and you want it throttled down.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you're moving between positions, you want, and you have to cover more ground, so you turn up the speed.
And speaking of which, we would love to see Lefty, right? Isn't Lefty there?
Lefty is in the wings, and that he kind of embodies another thing that I want to do with Tara, and that is what am I running into?
Hey, that's pretty strong. I like that.
So Lefty is also not much more than a remote control car. And with some spring-loaded motion.
That is surprisingly lifelike and pretty scary. I mean, even knowing what it is, it's still unsettling.
Yeah, exactly. He's so jointy. You can see a lot of unrealistic details, but people really enjoy him at the fair.
Yeah. Do you have a clip of him at the fair?
Yes.
Because I remember him, and I remember people running. That's awesome.
Okay, I have a comment here.
Oh, we have a comment coming in
I
via
have
chat.
a comment, and the comment is from Mr. Steve in Southern California. He says that Walker must have an amazingly patient and tolerant wife.
Oh, that is the truth.
An aider and an abetter, hopefully.
Yep. People at Maker Faire seem to be a pretty unique crowd too. Very, very, very patient with these types of projects, even when they come over and annoy them.
I think that's true. You know, I think people come kind of looking for things like this, and so there's they do respond pretty well. But that is, hey, do you have a picture of how you built Lefty?
Oh yeah.
Because that's both cool and amazing how simple it was for how well it works.
Yeah. So cosplayers, please be kind, because this was my first shot at using. It's a PVC construction. This is her skeleton, and I didn't know until I tried this project that you can just use a heat gun on PVC pipe, bend it into shape, and it will hold that shape. So it was just a matter of, building this frame with all the articulation that I wanted. And you can see here again, it's just a spring-loaded mouth.
Yeah.
His mouth is spring-loaded?
And then this is foam, and you can get it in sheets. There happens to be a place not far from us where we can buy rolls of this stuff. It's not very expensive, but cosplayers use this to make armor, all kinds of different types of things. And I won't get too close here because the joints that I did to put it together are terrible.
How old is Lefty? How long ago did you build it?
Oh, she's just 2 years old. I had another robot that he went. He just could not be used anymore. He was just basically a person, kind of a semi-realistic person in a wheelchair, and I swore if anybody got offended by him, I would take him apart and build something else. And Lefty was the result of that.
The beneficiary of that. So is Lefty a she? I can't tell my sharks apart.
I don't know.
Okay.
It's a play on, the Super Bowl left shark.
All right. Right.
And I don't know who was in that.
I'm blanking that. Well, the reason I asked that is that when you showed us the skeleton, that is it's amazingly simple, and I don't usually think of PVC as being that strong, but boy, it works really well, and it looks like it's holding up really well.
And it's light. And that's a good thing. Tara is kind of super heavy.
Yeah.
Her frame was. One of the things not many people know is that Tara started out life as Fred. Fred.
We won't read too much into
was
that.
Another acronym that started with Ford, even though this was not a Ford project. It was off, but one of the guys, the woodworker I mentioned before, it was a truck driver and was at a shop, and the lady said, "Hey, I've got this mannequin in the back. Do you want it?" And he thought, well, maybe we could use it. So we ended up getting this. And
somewhat unexpected.
It was very unexpected. So we all said, it's too good not to use. Let's use it. So that's how Tara became Tara. So Lefty, maybe it's a she. Could be.
Well, I seriously love the way the mechanical build went on Lefty because it's cheap, accessible materials. I'm amazed at those tight bends you got on the PVC, and it's holding up. And it just, as it moves, it's just very, very lifelike, and it just really works,
Yeah, I was very happy with how it came out. I really struggled because I wanted to electrify all of the motion.
Uh-huh.
And couldn't make it for Maker Faire. So I ended up spring loading it, and I'm like, why would I ever put a motor on this?
Why make it more complicated than that? Because that really, really does work well.
Yeah.
I just love it.
So maybe the term robotics is not exactly correct for this. I do use that term because First Robotics, they use driven robots. There's no autonomy on them. I do want to do some autonomy, but I can't at this point see my autonomy projects being let loose in a crowd.
Right. I mean, so you may recall, we've talked with one of our customers has a Boston Dynamics spot, and we talked to Boston Dynamics offline about a couple of things, and they will tell you that yes, that's an autonomous robot, but they don't let people around it because it's not safe around people, right?
Right.
It's got some pinch points that can really do bad things, and if it falls on you, that's 75 pounds accelerating pretty hard.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean, and they have more development resources than you and I do. So just say
yes. Someday we'll get there someday.
Well, and to that point, the compute resources are really out there. Jetson Nano Boy, that's a lot of power, and you can get one for what now, 125, 140 bucks. So the materials are at hand, but I think you're taking the right approach, and it's
Yes.
just so effective.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd like to do some work with machine learning too, and
Right.
that would be really good. Yeah,
Yeah.
so much fun. There's so many fun things. I really like the way technology has enabled people to do more, and with less equipment, less money.
Well, and I will have to say, for someone whose background is software oriented, you just show a tremendous amount of natural talent for using things that are at hand and repurposing things and putting them together very, very effectively. That's just really impressive because I build things all day, every day for a living, and it's hard. And you've
Yeah,
got some really good results there.
and it's really where I like to work is at the low end. I like doing things that are cheap. I almost regret every time I have to go to Lowe's when I'm looking for PVC parts because somebody always comes up to me and says, "What's this? What are you doing? What's this
Yeah,
for?"
yeah.
And I have to like go, "It's I'm building a robot," and
I,
then their eyes glaze over and you
I
walk away.
do that all the time because we actually have an Ace Hardware about 2 miles from here, and they have a very, very well stocked small hardware, better than anywhere around. And so for my one-offs, I'm always over there looking for an M3
Yeah,
pan head or whatever. And you walk in and they say, well, what do you want to use it for? I'm like, just please don't ask.
don't
Don't
ask.
ask that question. Is there a particular like hardware direction you want to go in? You think?
Yeah, my initial goals were to make this something that I could share and make it low cost as possible. The beauty of wheelchair as a base is that it can be fairly inexpensive. Um, so both of these frames that I'm running these two bots on, I got them both for 50 bucks.
Wow.
$50 a piece. And that's amazing for a platform
That's
that's made out of medical grade motors.
that's crazy.
It's really hard to kill this kind of hardware. Look for these. There's lots of different places you can get them on Craigslist, garage sales sometimes. I saw this was up just last week. The bid starts at $5. This one ended up going for 110.
Really?
And this one has good batteries.
Wow.
That is crucial because the batteries are the most expensive part when you buy like this.
Sure.
But this is very similar to the Shark, to Lefty.
How and is it if you do need to replace the batteries, are they pretty easy to get at?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're built to be replaced,
Okay.
and they're lead acid, so they're a little bit heavy. Um, they're They used to be a little bit cheaper than they are now. They're for a pair of batteries for either of these robots would be about $300 now. So that ends up being inexpensive. If you can find one that has good batteries already, that saves you a lot. But to put an Arduino, the first version of this, that Spider bot, that was just an Arduino running.
Sure.
So my goal is to keep the cost low, but again, for safety, I've made some trade-offs where I've used a motor controller, replaced the existing controller, and that costs a little bit of money, and it's gotten a little bit more expensive. I'd feel a lot better if this was something that could be published and people could do it all for 50 bucks, but.
Well, that's a noble goal, but I still think that what you're doing, even in the price range you're talking about, it's really accessible, especially if a couple people get together. Um,
Yeah.
because this is both to share the load of building, but also you can, just use it in so many different ways and places. Couple, three people get together, that's a great communal project right there. And I can just think of so many different ways to use that mobile base.
Yes.
We have a question.
Oh, we have a question, Walker. Yes.
Walker, are wheelchair batteries, are they similar to batteries for UPS backup units?
You could use battery backup, which would be like a lead acid gel. Typically, they come with lead acid, like an AGM style battery, which would be more like a golf cart. And those are easy to find. The nice thing about those is that they're very durable. They'll last for 3 or 4 years. If you replace the batteries, you may get better or worse distance or speed or power out of them. Which is another good reason to use these, like a motor controller like I'm using, replacing the motor controller that comes with it. Because the motor controller that comes with it will limit the amount of current you can put through the motors. So if you want to do something like a lawnmower or you know, something that will plow the snow off your driveway, it's not as good. But if you replace the motor controller and put one, a saber tooth or a basic micro like I'm using here, you'll get a lot more power out of it, a lot more speed.
And actually, I was going to ask that question is, I mean, aside from, I'm not asking now about where the center of gravity is, because obviously Tara is very tall and so she's pretty tippy. But let's say you kept the center of gravity low, can you use one of these mobile wheelchairs off of the pavement so you could go on grass or something like that to use it in other applications?
You can. Typically, the wheels that come with it are medical grade, so they're not. They don't have the best traction.
Right.
You can buy off-road style wheels.
A little more knobby.
Yeah, they're a black rubber as opposed to like a gray or a tan color, and they definitely stick a lot better. Definitely, even for going up ramps or whatever, they're better for that. But they don't last as long.
Right.
And they might mar floors.
Yeah,
so,
I figure that's why they use those gray ones, right? They're non-scuff and that sort of thing, right?
That's also a nice thing about the wheelchair base is that when you're using it for robotics, it can go anywhere where a wheelchair can go.
Right.
So any buildings that are accessible, you can go through.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that, but of course that's absolutely true.
Yeah. Oh, it's important to me.
Yeah.
Maker Faire, it always rains at Maker Faire.
Yeah.
So I love to be able to go inside if it's starting to rain.
How do you get her? I mean, she's heavy. What do you think is the total weight on Tara?
She's probably about 200 and maybe 210.
Wow. How do you get her?
You would not be able to lift her.
No.
I had her in the back of a car and brought her over to this building for testing in the parking lot. And a couple of friends came over and we were going to just kind of play around like an RC car. And they said, "Oh, we'll just lift her out." I had a ramp. we'll just lift her out. And they were very surprised. Even 2 guys trying to lift just the base.
Wow.
It's not easy.
Another comment.
Got another comment.
Steve says
Still lead acid batteries. There's so much lead in them.
Yeah. No, the batteries are like ammo.
Steve says it's rude to ask a gal's weight.
Well, we hope she was sleeping.
I'll reset her. She'll never know.
Yeah, because that was my thought, is transporting her. That's not trivial, but I can just see so many possible uses for that base, aside from, just straight up robotics. Boy, you could make a useful machine for just kind of schlepping stuff around.
There are guys. There are projects online. If you search for wheelchair robot, people who have just put a platform on top and use it to carry things, concrete bags, whatever, around the garage.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
for that. I would recommend people not do lawnmowers, RC lawnmowers, or snow clearing. They're totally okay for that. They will do it, but it's so boring after. Who wants to sit there and control? You're going to do it once or twice and then never again.
That's true. Yeah, that is true.
That's a good one for autonomy. Well, one of my goals, one of the things I'd like to build is an autonomous lawn weeder.
You can sell that.
Yeah, yeah. It would be. I don't think I would go up against Black and Decker or any of the others, but if you had the algorithm to do it, and the nice thing about broadleaf weeds is they have a pattern. They all have the leaves that come into a central point. So if you find a central point with radiating lines, you know where to target.
Yeah, that is actually a really interesting computer science problem.
Yeah.
Well, is there an online community for people who build wheelchair robots? Are there like resources out there?
I haven't found anything.
Really?
There are lots of people who have published their own projects, a lot of things on YouTube that are interesting to see. But I haven't seen an actual community just for wheelchair robots. And the sad thing about these wheelchairs is that they tend to get dumped into landfills.
Yeah, that's bad.
And they're such great hardware.
Yeah.
But typically, if you're getting a wheelchair, you're getting it through the insurance company. The insurance company is going to buy a brand new one for you. And once they're done, a lot of states have laws, like Michigan, where I am, has a law that you can't reuse it because it's a medical piece of equipment. You can't use it for another person. Mm-hmm. Tara has had a noble goal at first, and she's become a clown. she's more entertainment than anything else. But
well, I think there are just so many directions you can take her. In particular, when I see her interact with children, I just see a lot of possibilities. Show us the skeleton.
It's Halloween at my house.
Oh yeah. That's a great way to terrorize kids, even adults.
It's actually Lefty's base.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yep, I love that. Well, that has just been a tremendous amount of fun. I just not just the technology, but the story of how you came to this point, and really where you can take it from here. Thank you for sharing it with us. I hope that this has inspired some of our friends at FazeDoc to kind of maybe take this up, because I just love the platform and what it'll do. That is great. We've had a tremendous amount of fun, Walker. Thank you for not just your time today, but what I'm sure was a lot of time to prep and set up from where you're broadcasting. That was just tremendous fun.
Anytime I can get these bots out and have fun with them, I do.
Let him drive them around.
Yeah, drive them around just a little bit more there. Let's see. Let me pin you back up there, and let's see a little more driving around. Yeah, because that was Lefty's just amazing. And Lefty's fast.
Lefty's fun.
I love the crashing noises. I think you're right. The spring-loaded parts, they're perfect. Is Tara gonna come say hi? There she is. What's the deal with the rocket? Oh, good shot.
So Tara's backpack is a subwoofer, her rocket.
Oh, good. So that's where when you upgraded your speakers, that's where it went, huh?
I don't know how well that's coming through.
Yeah, the sound from over there is not that, we can't really hear her very well. Oh, there she is.
I hope she's not still mad at me.
Yeah, because she's armed. Walker, thank you so much.
Would you like to dance?
I would love to dance. It was great fun, and we hope the next time we meet, it's out behind the Henry Ford Museum in Detroit. That's really one of our all-time favorite maker fairs. Our next Facebook Live is on March 13th, and we're going to be talking to our good friend Guido Bonelli, who founded and invented Dr. Duino. So Guido and I will be talking about what it takes to launch a hardware product as a business. So if you've ever thought about doing that, we'll try to talk you out of it. Thank you everyone for joining us. We always have so much fun. And if you'd like to learn more about us, please feel free to reach out either to Barbara or to me. Barbara at phasedoc.com, Chris at phasedoc.com. In the meantime, have a wonderful week and happy making.